Okay. Oh, there we are. Good evening. My name is Commissioner Steve Schwalbe. I now call to order the May 20th, 2026 Island County Planning Commission meeting. It is 6 o'clock. These proceedings will be recorded and made available to the public on our website. We will start with a roll call by district, starting with District 1.
District 1, Bill Criswell.
District 1, Callahan McVeigh.
Mike Clyburn, District 1.
District 2,
Julie Jackson, District 2.
Steve Bristow, District 2.
Darren Hand, District 2.
and District 3.
Jim Dean, District 3.
Oh, right. And Steve Schwalbe, District 3. So we're missing McVeigh Callahan.
No.
Kiga.
Kiga.
Oh, Kiga. We're missing Fred Kiga. That's unusual.
He told us that he would not be at this meeting.
Okay, we have a quorum. We will continue. Let's talk about the minutes of May 13th. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes?
Move that we approve the minutes.
I have a motion to approve it in a second. Any other comments? Okay, if you're in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstain? Minutes are approved. Okay, now it's time to take comments from the public. Taking testimony from all those who wish to comment on items other than the items covered today for the public hearing. If you're here for the public hearing, please wait and save your comments for later in the agenda. If you come up to the podium, state your name and address. Each member will have 3 minutes to state their comment. And please direct your comments to the commissioners, not to the staff. So do we have any public comments not related to the public hearing? Do we have one online? Okay. And now we will move to the director's report.
Good evening, Commissioner. Jonathan Lang, Planning Director. Just wanted to say we're excited. We're at this point in the comp plan update process here for the public hearing this evening. The only thing I wanted to mention was, depending on how tonight goes and if we have another meeting, we're thinking that in June, as we prepare for the meetings before the Board of County Commissioners, most likely the first meeting in June will be canceled.
So the 1st of June.
If that's the first.
Is it the 3rd?
I think it's the 3rd.
Okay.
It's the 3rd. But we'll let you know. We'll reach out via email.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't have anything else.
We'll still have 2 meetings in June, correct?
If
We'll
we
likely cancel the first one.
Okay, got it. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. All right. Anything else for the director? Okay. Well, here we are. We are now at the public hearing. I'll now open up the meeting to a public hearing. This evening, we have 2 items that need to be addressed. The 2025 comprehensive plan update and the update to the Island County Development Regulations, also known as the Island County Code. The commission will hear comments on both items when it is time, well, right now. So to begin, can we have the staff presentation?
Of course, thank you. So Emily Neff, Assistant Director. I'm going to start with a brief presentation here to get us going with the public hearing tonight. Just wanted to review the purpose of the public hearing. You already stated, but we are here to hear from the public and take public testimony on the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update and the Development Regulations updates. So after the staff presentation, we will hear public testimony, and then the Planning Commission will have time to deliberate. Ultimately, the Planning Commission will need to issue their findings of fact and recommendations in 2 separate actions. So all of this is being done tonight as part of the legislative action to adopt the comprehensive plan. and adoption takes place at the Board of County Commissioners. They're the ultimate decision makers on the comprehensive plan. So wanted to start tonight with just some review of why we do these periodic updates. They are mandated by the Growth Management Act. Our local comprehensive plans are our local implementation of the Growth Management Act. So our local plans must be consistent with the GMA. They must account for 20 years of population growth. They require a public participation plan, and they must be implemented through capital investments, which is our capital facilities element and capital facilities plan, and our development regulations, which is our Island County Code. So the Growth Management Act really goes hand in hand with these comprehensive plans and our Island County Code. All three work in tandem together. The 2025 update of our comprehensive plan includes the elements on the slide here tonight. So our land use element also covers the rural element requirements. We have an economic development element, housing, natural resources, parks and recreation, transportation. We combined capital facilities and utilities, and then climate resiliency is a new element required by the state, and we'll talk more about that tonight. As we started the comprehensive plan process nearly 2 years ago now, our Board of County Commissioners set 3 priorities for us for the comprehensive plan. And those priorities were health, equity, and climate resilience. So we've carried those priorities and themes through the comprehensive plan update. The vision statement in the comprehensive plan is in the introduction chapter. I'll read it here tonight briefly. Island County strives to grow our communities in ways that respect the people who lived here in the past, that responds to those who live here today, and accommodates those desiring to live here in the future. We will protect our vital natural resources, our wild and natural places, our working farms and forests, and our shorelines that contribute to our unique island life. We strive to create capacity for all our residents and meet their needs equitably in pursuit of a thriving economy and resilient community. So some of the major changes I wanted to review in the 2025 update. One of them you've heard a lot about if you've been following along on this process. The state in 2021 changed the way communities plan for housing as part of our comprehensive plans. They did that through what's called House Bill 1220, which amended the Growth Management Act and required all local governments to plan for and accommodate housing affordable to all income levels. So a lot of the updates to our comprehensive plan were housing related updates this time. And the development regulations updates that are before you are also largely due to the housing mandates from this House Bill 1220. The other state mandated update was climate. The state required a new element to address climate resiliency in the comprehensive plan process, and they added a new goal to the Growth Management Act to address climate resilience. The focus of the climate element is to assess how climate change is impacting Woodby Camino Island. So we did a vulnerability and risk assessment to complete that step. We were meant to highlight communities that were more vulnerable to local impacts. We created a story map to show vulnerable communities, and then identifying strategies that support adaptation and increase community resilience. So we have a number of new goals and policies in the climate element that strive to achieve that. Some of the other key element changes that we made in this comprehensive plan update, I wanted to review briefly with you here tonight. Every time we do a comprehensive plan update is a time we have to look at our land use element, and it's a time that our coordinating jurisdictions can make changes to their urban growth areas. So in this comprehensive plan update, Coupeville, the town of Coupeville requested that 2 parcels be added to the town's urban growth area. And so that's reflected in the land use element is the request for those 2 parcels to be added. Langley actually did not change their urban growth area, but they did change their priority growth area and areas of long-term rural significance, which are part of their joint planning areas. So that's more of their long-term planning areas. So those are also reflected in the land use element. Oak Harbor has moved forward with annexing some of the lands that were in their urban growth area into the city limits through an interlocal agreement. And there's a commitment to study the rest of the UGA areas for future planning in Oak Harbor. Freeland has been the county's longstanding non-municipal urban growth area. And the Freeland sub-area plan and the zoning changes were done during the last comprehensive plan update. But a lot of those haven't come to fruition because of a lack of a sewer or a wastewater solution. So in this comprehensive plan, there's been a big focus on finding funding to study solutions, maybe not just one solution, but multiple solutions to accommodate the growth in that non-municipal UGA. And then finally, in the land use element, the board directed staff to update the APZ, the accident potential zones, and the noise zone maps. The Navy updated these maps to reflect the latest growler operations at the 2 airfields on the island, and that was part of their EIS. And it's been kind of I think that was done many years ago, and so we're coming up to speed with their latest maps on that. So the housing element, I already talked about House Bill 1220, but that state had a number of requirements about assessing barriers to housing and removing barriers, addressing displacement risks, and making adequate provisions as part of House Bill 1220. So all of that work was done as part of the housing element. The economic development element is a brief element, but it was updated using the comprehensive economic development strategy. It's often called the SEDS. It was a very involved process. It's a 5-year plan that the county developed and had a lot of community input and stakeholders. And so we used that as the basis for that update. Next, the natural resources and climate elements. As I mentioned, the climate element is new to meet the requirements of House Bill 1181 and the Climate Commitment Act requirements. Throughout the natural resources element, we increased measures to protect water quality and aquifers from risks of development. We applied the requirements for best available science and using no net loss requirements throughout the natural resources element and into the critical areas policies. The natural resources element really has the goals and policies that kind of set the basis for our critical areas ordinance. So making sure that those are up to date. And then a lot of updates were made to support sustainable forest management and increase protections on ag lands in that element. Under our infrastructure, so our capital facilities and utilities elements, we mentioned those were combined. They used to be 2 separate elements. We made the required updates to the county's 6-year and 20-year capital facilities projects lists, which are extensive in the comprehensive plan. I mentioned already there's planning for septic and sewer infrastructure to support housing, both in the Freeland NMUGA and our Lammerts mentioned in there. And then the transportation element largely focused on multimodal levels of service. They had to make some updates around requirements for complete streets, active transportation, public transit, and then integrate their work with the land use element. And then finally, under infrastructure, the parks and recreation element was updated to reflect our current inventory, to identify funding strategies, and updates to active and passive uses. Finally, the Clinton community got a new sub-area plan as a part of this comprehensive plan update. It's in the appendices of the comprehensive plan, and it addresses many similar topics that the comprehensive plan addresses in terms of housing, infrastructure, economic development for the kind of downtown core area of Clinton, including the rural center and rural residential areas. We mentioned that the development regulations or Island County Code updates are also part of tonight's public hearing and what we're asking the Planning Commission to move forward. So just wanted to list those sections of the development regulations that have been updated. So all the chapters here listed on the slide have been have some changes to them proposed as a part of the final drafts that we've presented to you. Wanted to go through some of those key updates to the development regulations or to the code very quickly. I think these are some of the more significant changes we've made to accommodate housing as a part of House Bill 1220. So our Lammert updates, Lammert stands for Limited Areas of More Intensive Rural Development. And we have 3 or 4 zones: rural center, rural village, Camino Gateway Village, and rural service. So 4 zoning districts are affected by these changes. and they're kind of scattered throughout Whidbey Island and Camino Island. We had a consultant look at these areas, and they identified that they were very underutilized for housing and suggested some changes to incentivize housing development and hopefully spark some more affordable housing in these areas. So the minimum lot sizes were set at 1/2 acre in these zones. We have a minimum density, which is new, and it was set at 4 dwelling units. So new developments will have to include housing. The maximum density was set at 8 dwelling units with bonus densities up to 12 dwelling units for affordable developments. Overnight lodging is allowed as a standalone use, and non-conforming lots, which means lots that are less than that 1/2 acre minimum, are allowed a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. We did disallow single family in most of those zones, trying to incentivize the more multifamily development, and then disallowing kind of large space intensive uses like mini storage and marijuana processing facilities in these zones to preserve the space for housing. One of the other code updates we made was to rural cluster code. And this used to be chapter 16.17, and it was called planned residential developments. And we've revised it to be a rural cluster code. So we've reorganized that section of code to add a table and improve clarity and ease of use of that code. For a long time, that code we've heard feedback that it's hard to use and hard to manage. So we've tried to make big improvements there. We did maintain the 20 acre minimum lot size for market rate clusters, and we're allowing 10 acres minimum for an affordable cluster. There are new buffer and landscaping standards, and we're allowing for mixed income with 60% of the housing to make an affordable cluster. Some more updates, just wanted to mention about the cluster code. We are allowing the market rate housing to be at 1 house per 2.5 acres. So that's the density bonus. For the affordable housing, it's 4 houses per acre. And we clarified that the accessory dwelling units count toward that density. We have applied a minimum requirement of 4 houses per cluster development and a maximum of 40 to put some constraints around cluster sizes. We've allowed averaging of house size limits of 1,500 square feet across all proposed housing. We've required 1,200 feet distance between rural cluster development sites, so 2 clusters couldn't be located closer than 1,200 feet. And we've included a requirement for a Group A or Group B water system, which is kind of a public water system, as well as enhanced stormwater management for these clusters. We've also prohibited the rural clusters near the air installations or AQs zones, which are the noise zones for the 2 Navy airfields. Okay, so another change in the code are accessory dwelling unit changes. So the legislature just passed in March, just a couple months ago, a new bill, House Bill 1345, requiring updates to ADU codes in rural areas. So we are maintaining our limit of 35 detached ADUs. We've had that limit in our rural lands for a very long time in Island County, and we are reserving 5 of those 35 for affordable rentals to meet our affordable housing numbers as detached ADUs, and those folks who would be building the affordable ADUs would sign a deed restriction. We applied the ADU size limit in the new House bill of 1,296 square feet, and they have a distance requirement of 150 feet from the primary residence, which we've applied to the code as well. Another change we wanted to call out, again, this change came from the state. It was passed by the legislature very recently, House Bill 1854, requiring updates to our code for religious organizations. So we added that definition, clarified religious organizations are allowed to host a variety of shelter and housing types on their land, and clarified the density bonuses that are available for housing for religious organizations. So you'll see those code updates reflected as well. Wanted to go through public participation just briefly here. So we have been taking public input on the comprehensive plan for the last 2+ years. The Growth Management Act requires early and continuous public participation in the process. We've had over 1,100 comments submitted throughout the process from 743 individuals. We've had 86 Board of County Commissioner work sessions or regular session meetings, and 57 Planning Commission meetings with you all have been held during that time. We have also had 6 joint meetings between the board and other jurisdictions or with the Planning Commission. We had 7 public meetings or open houses held throughout the county. We've given over 35 presentations to community groups. We've held 9 focus groups or workshops. And then we've administered 15 surveys through our website or other means. So this is just a snapshot of our public engagement website. We've had really good traffic to that website and engagement over the last year and a half that we've had that in operations, and folks are still using it today. So from all the comments that have been submitted, and especially during this last round, just wanted to share some themes of the comments that we incorporated into these final drafts. So comments that were submitted that strengthened or added more specifics to existing elements and policies, or to the element language themselves. We incorporated those. Comments that were submitted that were consistent with the policy direction that we received from the board were included. We added some specific actions and studies in the implementation plan, which is something the board had asked for. The board asked for us to draft an implementation plan, and several items were added to it in the final phase. Some input was submitted from subject matter experts and some of our community-based organizations, and that input was incorporated where appropriate in the final drafts as well. And then we did some kind of highlighting of the roles and topics that crossed elements such as farmlands and climate resilience and climate hazards, making sure that all of the elements are addressing those topics. So some of the comments that were submitted that were not incorporated, just wanted to briefly share with you why some comments were not included. So some of the comments were duplicative of an existing policy or statement, or were covered in another element. So those, if the comment was already covered, we did not incorporate it. Some comments were too specific, and what I mean by that is a lot of site-specific kind of property information was submitted, and comprehensive plans are broad policy documents, and so if the comment was too specific, it was not included in the update. Some of the comments we received conflicted with policy direction that we already received from the board, and so we knew that that was something the board didn't support, so we did not move forward with those suggestions. Some of the suggestions had staffing or cost implications that had not been approved by the board, so could not be incorporated at this time. Staff kind of took a look at what would be realistic to accomplish in the 10 years with that implementation plan, and looking at competing priorities, and made some calls about what could be included and what couldn't for those reasons. And then we did have some comments that were submitted that were kind of generic letters, probably submitted to other counties that were not very relevant to our county. So comments were not incorporated for that reason too. Wanted to address kind of minor corrections on final drafts. At our last meeting with the Planning Commission, we talked about what constitutes a minor correction versus a substantive change. So wanted to share that here tonight. We are following the WEAN that's on the screen here regarding minor changes. And so the Planning Commission had previously asked if you all could submit minor changes, so minor corrections to the comprehensive plan. And after consulting with our prosecuting attorney, he said that that could be submitted in advance. So the planning commissioners have submitted some minor corrections to staff. We went through and made sure they all fit that WEAN definition of a minor change. We do have a change table prepared that will be published to the meeting packet tonight that will show in detail each of the changes that were submitted. So the Planning Commission can feel confident moving forward with those minor corrections as part of your recommendation here tonight. So I wanted to provide some visibility to that. Okay, so with that, that's our staff presentation. I will open it up for questions to staff, and this is just from planning commissioners at this time. So the person in the audience who has their hand up right now, we're not going to take public comment quite yet.
Any commissioners' comments? Online? All right. Great presentation.
Thank
Good
you.
wrap up. Good foundation for the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It's that time. We are now opening the hearing for public testimony from those who wish to comment on both items, the comprehensive plan update and the Island County Code. Each commenter has 3 minutes. We will start with the people that signed up in the room. I have the list and we'll go in order. And if you're not on the list, you can go after the last one. Thank you. And if someone has made a statement with which you agree, you do not need to restate it. In the interest of time, just state that you agree with that person's comments. Please direct your comments to the commissioners and not the staff. First up is Amanda Bullis. Amanda?
While Amanda gets up there, could I just do a point of order to silence your cell phones, please? I keep hearing a binging from someone's cell phone, so I just want to do a reminder.
Okay. I didn't hear anything.
Like a paper, Carol.
Hi, Commissioners. Amanda Bullis with the Environmental Action Network. First, I want to say thank you to the Planning Department and the Planning Commission for all of your hard work during this process. It's a very heavy lift. Regarding the draft of the plan, I appreciate the places where climate resilience and no net loss have been included. Thank you for that. That said, there are aspects of the natural resources element that need to be amended in order to fully meet the obligations of the county to no net loss and the protection of critical areas. The vision of the natural resources element includes, quote, steps should be taken to protect natural resources to achieve no net loss of ecological functions, end quote. The subsequent policies in that element include reference to no net loss in many appropriate places that fulfill the county's obligation to protect critical areas. Thank you for that. However, the definition of no net loss in the glossary of the combined draft still only references shorelines, not the ecological functioning of all of Island County's ecosystems, specifically the critical areas explicitly protected by the GMA. Please expand the definition of no net loss to include all critical areas. Regarding NR 3.3.3, quote, retain, salvage, or reestablish native vegetation using conditions developed during review of a development application, end quote. Conditions during review of a development application is a vague statement and does not directly address the county or landowner obligation to utilize mitigation sequencing when considering a development application that impacts critical areas. This policy needs to speak specifically to the mitigation requirements and subsequent mitigation plans required by the state when critical areas are impacted by development proposals. The Washington Administrative Code also states that avoidance is the most effective way to protect critical areas before compensatory mitigation is considered. With this considered, retaining vegetation should be explicitly prioritized. This policy should also not only be limited to vegetation, but should consider the total impact on the ecological functioning of affected critical areas. Right now, the county's obligation to regulate land use development in accordance with mitigation requirements that protect critical areas are not mentioned anywhere in the comprehensive plan, with the exception of Goal 4, which references mitigation sequencing as pertaining to future transportation projects only. This is not sufficient representation. The comprehensive plan needs to directly reference in policy the mitigation sequencing required in order of priority when critical areas are impacted by development, and establish the mitigation plan requirements that will then be outlined procedurally in the critical areas ordinance. WEAN just published a report that shows serious administrative gaps in Island County's current mitigation planning process, which points to a very real, tangible need for better policies and procedures for mitigation planning in order to be in compliance with the law. A draft of this report was shared with the Planning Department during the public comment period. The final report was shared today via email as an attachment to my written comment and is now available on the WEAN webpage on our issues page. Despite the potential to further elongate the adoption process, we hope that the county will take substantive feedback during this hearing as required by GMA. I also hope that the board and the planning department have a process in place for iterative planning. And by that, I mean staff assigned to this process and a date on the calendar to open the plan on an annual basis, so that people who are engaging in this process can be assured that their feedback will be considered in good faith by the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. Okay, next. I have Jim Lepacki. Is that close?
Thanks very much. My name is Jill Lapoti, and I am from Clinton. I am here on behalf of the Marine Resources Committee. We want to thank you for all the work that you've done on putting together this update to the comprehensive plan. And we were heartened to see that many of the key themes and the goals that we put on the record were actually put into the comprehensive plan. When you say marine resources, you think just water and you think all that water surrounding Island County. But in fact, it's really important what happens on land, because water runs off into our marine environment. And so as climate change ramps up, it exacerbates those kinds of issues that occur with more frequent deluges and longer droughts. So now that your comprehensive planning work is coming to an end, we plan to be right there commenting on the shoreline management plan, because the issue of hard armoring is one that is important to us. We understand that the shoreline management plan exists within the context of the comprehensive plan. And we hope that the discouragement of additional hard armoring and the removal of existing armoring can be incentivized through the implementation of the SMP. We were also really happy to read in the Comprehensive Water System Plan Comprehensive Study that there is an emphasis on looking at how water flowing into and out of specific aquifers can impact. So we're pretty pleased to see our themes reflected in the documents, and we plan to be right there with you on the SMP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Next, by Marnie Jackson.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Marnie Jackson from Langley, speaking on behalf of Woodby Environmental Action Network. I agree with the previous commenters on most of their content. I also wish to sincerely acknowledge the work that has gone into this update. The 2025 draft represents a meaningful improvement over 2016, and we commend the county for its commitment to climate resilience, equity, and health. Having participated in this process for 2.5 years, I know how much time and energy have been invested. Thank you. We believe the plan must go further before it is ready for adoption. WEAN is submitting detailed written comments, including a rural cluster's impact analysis and a technical report on the lack of documented mitigation success in Island County. We will be constructive, but we want the board and staff to understand clearly, if the legally vulnerable issues we are raising are not rectified prior to adoption, we are prepared to bring a challenge before the Growth Management Hearings Board. We raise this not as a threat, but as a courtesy, so the county has every opportunity to resolve these issues without the cost and delay of an appeal. These are 3 of our most significant concerns. First, the rural cluster concept has not been planned for with sufficient rigor. Without an adequate policy framework, these provisions create real legal exposure, fragment our rural areas, and fail to solve the affordability problem they seek to address. The removal of a cap on clusters or units per year, per decade, or county-wide is one of the most consequential changes in this final draft. The plan lacks an aggregate analysis of how many clusters could be built, how many units that represents over the planning period, or whether septic and other infrastructure can absorb that growth. This is not adequate planning. It is an open-ended rural development entitlement. Second, there is no funded 6-year capital improvement plan for moving beyond study into implementation of sewer alternatives. The need for study has been very apparent for many, many years. We are ready to move beyond that. Septic alternatives, group septic, or other wastewater infrastructure are needed to serve Clinton, other Limmards, and the Freeland and MUGA. Freeland's need has been plainly evident for decades. The NMUGA's capacity to absorb the urban density that it should, which in turn drives development pressure into the rural zone and contributes to the perceived need for rural clusters in the first place, is ill-served if you do not fund this necessary infrastructure. Planning for proposed densities in these areas without funded infrastructure continues a long pattern of paper planning that leaves our groundwater, surface water, and marine environments chronically vulnerable to septic contamination. Your own draft acknowledges that the housing capacity implied by the proposed density revisions is incompatible with the reality of the missing infrastructure. Finally, the county's agreement with Oak Harbor to allow annexation of greenfield land before a solid plan exists for annexing the existing quote-unquote donut hole neighborhoods inverts the sequencing that the Growth Management Act is designed to enforce. Directing growth outward before infill obligations are met is precisely the pattern that the GMA was written to prevent. We look forward to your response to our written comments and to working collaboratively toward a plan that will truly serve Island County's long-term future in alignment with state law. Thank you. And I'm handing a copy of that rural cluster analysis to staff. It was also sent earlier today by email. Thanks.
Thank you, Marnie. Next up, I have Paulette Becker.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nina Mulligan.
Good evening, and I don't mean to correct you, but I am Nina Milligan. Hope that we get to know each other better. Nina Milligan, lived on South Whidbey, near the Langley area. And I'm here also to thank you for the work on the comprehensive plan. I've been following the progress and really enjoy all the public engagement and keeping people informed by various means of communications has been really robust and really appreciate it. Tonight I'm focusing though on supporting Bike Whidbey and their comments regarding transportation and cycling on Whidbey. The efforts that they make are to improve transportation, recreation, and tourism for cycling, which impact all of our lives in so many ways. It's not clear to me if one of the major elements, paved shoulders, in the comprehensive plan are updated enough to support and really encourage cycling. I would refer you to page 232 in the transportation section under active transportation facilities, paved shoulders. The reason I look there is that I think that there's an opportunity to make a more robust definition that could then serve the code quality that fleshes it out for you. The section on paved shoulders talks about the 4-foot space being adequate for bicyclists to feel comfortable, to ride, and also to limit the impact of vehicular traffic. But I also think that the quality of the shoulders is just as important as how wide they are. So there might be an opportunity right there to make a small change in the draft comprehensive plan to refer to quality. And I don't mean to tell you how to write it. I'm just trying to show a place where you could put that. One of the things about quality is how the roads are kept clear. I think the county does a great job of clearing and re-clearing seasonally the shoulders so that they're rideable for cyclists. But another thing has to do with the quality of pavement. Chip seal, for instance, that goes into the shoulders makes it very difficult for cyclists. I know you've already heard a lot about other things like rumble strips, but this is a place where you could put a very qualitative comment that says that the condition of the shoulders is just as important as the size. And that's all I wanted to offer as an opportunity for one more little tweak. And thank you again for all your work.
Thank you, Nina. Next up, we have Robert Mulligan.
Nina Milligan covered my comments pretty well. I will submit some comments in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next up, Michael Payne.
Thank you, Commissioner. All the other attendees. My name is Michael Payne. I live on South Whidbey as well. I'm here speaking on behalf of Bike Whidbey. And I will just say I recognize the comments of all of the speakers here about the quality of the public engagements that's taken place to this point. I think it's top quartile performance by the staff, and just I'm super proud to be a resident of a place that does work so hard to take input. I'm also super proud of what's come out of the goals of this transportation plan. And when you read through it, it almost makes a bicycle advocate proud about the vision and the aspirations going forward. From the very beginning, 1.3, talking about safety, to talking about the health of our people who live in our community, as well as climate resiliency, transportation for all sorts of people, all sorts of levels of living in our society. I just wanted to share two very brief stories that I was thinking of. One is my next door neighbor, who is 86 years old. He doesn't drive anymore. He rides from his house to the grocery store and Safeway. It's about 1.5 miles. He bikes twice a week. He doesn't have a lot of carrying capacity on his bicycle, but he's a healthy man, and he enjoys riding his bike in. And that's happening. I ride for transportation, I ride for fitness, and I ride for recreation as well. But not everybody has those choices. I still drive, and I just like to recognize Fritz and let you know that there are people like him living there. I was also thinking about, I used to participate in the Whidbey Island Triathlon when it existed once a year. Only thing I do like that, just to stay fit. But I was trying to cross the finish line ahead of a man last year who is 83 years old. He's a business owner in Langley. He's extremely an active man. He cycles for fitness and health reasons, and I couldn't catch him. I'm turning 60 this summer, and he beat me. So in terms of the health of our citizens, staying active and staying safe when you ride is one of the best solutions for long-term longevity. I think there are a lot of really positive things here. I recognize the comments about chip seal. Those are very important too. This was submitted them in writing as well. I'd just like to shift and say, and the one last point from the goals that I was super excited to see, of course, 6.5 is the multi-use path running from the boat to the bridge. And it also references a connected system of paths that the county aspires to have. We appreciate you including that, even if it's the very end of the goals. And so we think about, how do we get from having great goals, a super engaging public hearing process, to implementation? And the comments that we'd like to bring forward are that we'd like to see the county have a bicycle advisory committee made up of volunteers, people who do cycle actively on the island, who can bring their firsthand experiences to the administration and the hardworking public works staff to help achieve the implementation goals as efficiently as possible. Many other cities and counties do this around the country, and it's a very effective tool which doesn't add costs and can in fact lower costs. The second piece that we'd just like to ask people to think about is staff allocation to achieving these goals. Many organizations have a person or a team of people who are dedicated to achieving the bicycle-oriented goals of their plans, and that may already exist today. But I think if we think about the next 10 years and what could stop us from being successful in implementing these goals, making sure that we're adequately resourced and have the input coming in from the people that are riding actively would be something that we would ask.
Okay, Mike.
And I'll stop with that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is Carlos Anderson.
Carlos Anderson in Freeland, Washington. I want to thank the county for the work and effort put into the comp plan updates. Welcome to the finish line, you guys. Most of my comments here are directed at Deer Lagoon Preserve. During the February 4th County Commissioner work session, the commissioners requested Public Works recognize and add a separate category in the parks element, a definition for what exactly is a preserve and the special protections afforded these properties, and also add the county's management requirements for these preserves based on their historic funding obligations. I did not see this included in the draft, so please be sure to add their request to the comp plan. Also, during the February 4th work session, Commissioner Bacon requested Public Works add to the comp plan a statement recognizing the importance of Deer Lagoon Preserve and that a management plan for the preserve is needed and will be developed and brought to the board for consideration. I also did not see this included in the draft, so please also include Commissioner Bacon's request. The management requirements of Deer Lagoon Preserve are totally different than most, if not all, other parks the county oversees. This is based on the federal funding sources for the purchase of Deer Lagoon Preserve and the requirements and restrictions attached to those funds the county is legally obligated to adhere to. No other recreational activity outside of the stated passive level is acceptable, and any other proposed or suggested recreation would be negligent and in violation of those federal grant requirements. Federal documents clearly state the passive management focus is protecting, preserving, and restoring fish and wildlife habitat at Deer Lagoon Preserve. There is no approved beach or water access at the preserve, suggesting in the comp plan that the public can access the very small and limited beach areas or waters is negligent, grossly misleading, and contrary to the intent and binding requirements in the grant documents. References in the comp plan to any beach water access is shown on maps 7 and map labeled areas within 3 miles of beach access need to be deleted. The unlabeled and unnumbered map between pages 42 and 43 of the parks element erroneously has 3 access points to Deer Lagoon Preserve, proposing access to park and water. Only one of these points at the south end of Deer Lagoon Road is a correct and established access point. The other points need to be deleted as they negligently encourage the public to blaze new unapproved trails through protected, sensitive, and critical habitats and potentially cultural sites. And lastly, the pros plan also needs to be corrected for the preserve, as it also states erroneously on page 80 of that plan that beach access is an existing improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Next up, James Blaisdell.
Good evening, James Blaisdell, Oak Harbor. Mr. Chair, planning commissioners, planning staff, consulting partners, and fellow citizens, thank you to everyone who contributed volunteer hours, professional time and skill, personal energy to the 2025 comprehensive plan update. This community owes you gratitude, genuine gratitude for the work that you've done. I'm here to ask for one more thing. Highland County has invested several $100,000 in direct contracts for this update, likely millions in staff time, and more than 2 years during which some important work was set aside to get the CCP done. That is a significant community investment. Before we close the books on it, I believe we owe ourselves the discipline that any serious organization applies after such a major effort. Aviation calls it a debrief. Business calls it a post-project review. Military calls it an after-action review. I'm going to refer to it for the county as a lessons learned review. Whatever the questions are always the same. What were we supposed to accomplish? What did we actually accomplish? Where did those differ and why? What went especially well and we should incorporate it into county memory for the future? And what should we do differently next time? This is not a critique. It's not a witch hunt. It's how learning organizations get better intentionally rather than simply hoping the next cycle will go better. And the next cycle will come. The team that updates this plan for 2045 to 2065 deserves to inherit your best thinking, not rediscover the hard lessons from scratch. Let me offer one example of what a lessons learned review might surface. Our plan describes itself as a 20-year guide for the future of Whidbey and Camino Islands. Yet when we measure what is actually on the page, roughly 63% of the plan body is devoted to current conditions and context, leaving only 37% in the actual goals, policies, and plans. The transportation element alone, 91 pages, contains less than 3 pages of forward-looking policy on how to get residents, businesses, freight, visitors, small packages on and off these islands. Getting on and off the islands is our most uniquely island transportation challenge. The imbalance is worth examining honestly so that the next team can make different choices. And I'm not suggesting that these choices were wrong. Given the constraints, I'm suggesting that capturing why those choices were made, what GMA required that might have caused you to not look at it that way, and what consultants recommended, and then finally what the staff found practical. That's exactly the institutional knowledge a lessons learned review is designed to capture and preserve. And this knowledge has immediate value, not just value 8 years from now when the next mandatory update arrives. The Human Services Transportation Plan is ongoing work right now. The Regional Transportation Plan update, which should be in fact merged with the CCP, is only 2 years out again. And the staff and volunteers carrying those efforts would be better equipped today if the lessons from these CCP update were documented and shared with them. A lessons learned review is not a gift to 2033, it's a gift to next month.
James?
I respectfully ask the commission to ask the Board of Commissioners, County Commissioners, that they charter a brief focused lessons learned review of the 2025 update.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much. I have Claire Richard. Okay. Next then is Wanda Eaton.
Hi, I'm a resident of the county in Coopville. My address is 1646 Wellswood Lane, and I'm here to address some issues in reference to some inconsistencies with the updates that you proposed and the mandates that are required by state. Simple revisions could make this consistent. So these are what I'm requesting. I request respectfully, the Planning Commission evaluate whether the current draft code language fully satisfies RCW 36.7A housing planning requirements, recent state ADU reform mandates, anti-displacement and affordability goals, and the county's own adopted housing objectives in the draft comprehensive plan. I also request clarification regarding whether condominium ownership structures for detached ADUs are intended to be permitted or prohibited, whether cannot be, quote, cannot be separately sold, quote, language is legally supportive under the Washington Common Interest Community Law, whether the code has completed a formal consistency analysis between the comprehensive plan housing policies and the implementing zoning code, and whether the county has evaluated potential exposure to future growth management hearing board challenges based on the internal inconsistencies or failures to adequately reduce barriers to housing production. And this is based on the draft comprehensive plan repeatedly identifies the need to increase housing availability, improve affordability, diversify housing types, support multi-generational living, and comply with state requirement, encouraging accessory dwellings and middle housing opportunities. However, portions of the draft zoning code appear inconsistent with those stated goals. Specifically, the draft ADU definition states that the detached ADU cannot be segregated or sold separately, transferred, given, or otherwise conveyed unless the lot is of sufficient size to meet base density and other county code requirements. This language appears to preserve traditional exclusionary parcel restrictions while simultaneously claiming compliance with the updated state housing policy objectives. Washington State Housing Legislation Growth Act updates now require local governments not only to nominally allow ADUs, but to meaningfully reduce regulatory barriers to their creation and use. The current draft still retains several substantial barriers, including continued dependency on underlying base density, limitations tied to rural parcel configuration, restrictions on ownership flexibility, and unresolved ambiguities regarding the condominium or common use ownership structure permitted under RCW 64.90. The draft comprehensive plan also references related to affordability and expanded housing opportunities, yet the zoning continues to define a detached ADU strictly as accessory and subordinate uses rather than recognizing evolving state policy encouraging broader housing flexibility. There is an additional internal inconsistency where planning materials, including allowing sale of individual units, which is one of the state codes that's required, while the draft code simultaneously prohibits segregation, separate conveyance, or in most circumstances. And as
Wanda, you're way past 3 minutes.
okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
You bet. Next up is Dave Amida.
Are you Mike? It's Dan Almeida.
Dan. All right.
Yeah. Getting sloppy. Yes, I'm Dan from Coopville here locally, and I'm also affiliated with the Bike Would Be group. So I will repeat some of those as per your request. But I did want to re-emphasize the Bike Advisory Committee in specific to the from table 4.1 in the transportation improvement project list. There's an IO7, which is bike to school programs. And that's something I'm a retired teacher from Coopville and ridden over 100,000 miles and probably 50,000 miles on Whidbey Island. And so I'm trying to begin a program in that area. And I noticed that was something that was listed in a sort of further study needed. And I really think through a bicycle advisory committee, that would be able to bring people with real cycling experience into that would be very valuable. I've witnessed other projects that happened and then were done and undone because they were not really appropriate, like rumble strips on parts of the highway that left no additional, like a 6-inch wide swath for cyclists to use. So anyway, I just wanted to emphasize that particular point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Good. Okay. I think we're now online. Oh, is there anybody else in the room that wants to make a statement at the podium? Okay, we're online. I think Mark, okay, Joe Kinsler is up.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know why we don't have a video option, but that's okay. I'm happy to testify before the Allen County Planning Commission for the next 3 minutes on the importance of accident potential zones. As many of you know, I'm an aviation enthusiast, some would say an afterburner extremist, because I will literally get on the buses for 3 or 4 hours from where I live just to watch OLF Coopville. I think it's very important that we serve and protect the outlying field with accident potential zones because, as we all saw, sadly, last Sunday, aviation is inherently dangerous. Things do happen. And on top of it, we've had, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully considering most of the audience, people who move next to airfields and complain about sound of freedom. And I think the reward for their activism should be very prompt and very firm accident potential zones. I would prefer calling them aviation potential zones, but that's me. The reason why we need these is to make sure that people are aware that they're living next to a naval outlying field or a naval air station, and you're going to hear some very loud sounds of freedom, just as we have the sounds of freedom talking to each other right now. And some of that's because of the protection of the Navy. And I really think it's important to keep OLF Coopville with low density and low unnatural light, so that naval aviators can practice their carrier landings, especially as the U.S. Navy is currently debating not having field carrier landing practice for student pilots in the Southwest, which means that we're going to have it be even more important for the Growler air crew to learn how to fly the Growler properly and practice how to land their carrier properly on moving aircraft carriers. This is not activity that can be replicated at Skagit Regional Airport. This is not activity that can be replicated at any other airport without an incredible cost and multi-years of appropriations, which is not coming. It's also vital to keep NES Whidbey Island open and economically viable, not to mention the economy of multiple counties. And one last thing, and I want to conclude on this uplifting thought. The use of accident potential zone, APZs, will also protect EBs in HR. Because, as you know, we have a housing crisis. And without every single tool we have in the toolbox to protect against development, the unique economy of Central Whidbey Island, which includes agriculture, tourism, aquatic parts of the economy, could all be at risk from turning farmland into housing. And APZs limit that. And using this tool is not anti-EB's reserve. It's one of the most pro-EB's reserve tools in the toolbox. So I ask these thoughts for your consideration. I want to thank all of you for your public service and to the staff for the years of public outreach to get us here. And thank you again.
Thank you, Joe. Next up online is Mark Wall.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm Mark Wall, 416 4th Street, Langley, and thanks to all of you for your hard work so far. I do have serious concerns about the draft of the Capital Facilities and Utilities section 10442, which is cellular telephone service. It's supposed to deal with the county's issues and powers related to wireless cellular facilities. It's vital now, given wireless tech's current exponential push that includes 5G and other complex innovations. Antenna facilities aren't just, quote, an FCC thing we make room for, unquote. In fact, the FCC doesn't register or direct any antennas, at least those not under 200 feet, those under 200 feet high. So US and Washington laws empower local comp plans and ordinances to keenly vet wireless permitting. Good local codes must, of course, avoid conflict with certain FCC limits and regulations, but written well, they oversee tasteful, non-intrusive, and safe local positioning and installation of this industrial level equipment in our precious natural settings and communities of all sizes. I'm not just an armchair quarterback here. I'm experienced in wording and critiquing wireless-oriented documents. I assisted Langley's interface with a top national attorney to make its 2022 code upgrade. For 7 years, I've directed a local nonprofit, Citizen League Encouraging Awareness of Radiation. We educate and protect the public around excessive unneeded electrosmog. Many of our members gave comments. From my experience, I did simple, prompt, and relatively brief rewrites of this draft section. Sadly, these were routinely switched, even contradicted, ultimately 100% ignored. In the published comments, I see the BOCC, whom I've also kept informed, chose to bury all rewriting of this section. So we see the archaic 2016 version resurrected for the new draft, verbatim, with the cherry on top being its 2015 map, like gospel, showing just 24 county towers. I had sent a new researched map that gave 128 towers in 2024. This ball dropping occurred despite A, the long lead time available, B, the GMA's the explicit schedules, the plan writers' years-long strong invitations and assurances regarding public participation, and D, my clear, prompt feeds to and critiques to the writers. E, my warnings about the coming exponential wireless permit demands and about the growing public pushback on big tech overreach and about wireless ever multiplying legal complexities. There's a GMA commandment. Code changes must be justified by policies stated in the existent comp plan. In a kind of cart before the horse, the BOCC told the planners to totally skip revising this archaically written section. The reasoning followed. The BOCC had in winter work session already consented to a wireless code revision in 1 to 3 years. All the more need for a good comp plan section first that asks for and guides rewriting the code. That's what the GMA says. But they canceled that. So we have a circular problem here, more like a Mobius strip of perpetual delay on a time-critical issue. So my question now is, while skipping this advantageous revision period, can you, BOCC, and the Commission assure me that you will, and many others, that you will reschedule a future time before the planned wireless code upgrade in 1 to 3 years to rewrite that comp plan section that you're ignoring now? You'll need to, that will guide the new code development. By the way, that means also at that time you'll be facing a future acceleration of wireless project proposals that have way more sophisticated demands and twists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, I have Dean Enel.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Like everybody else, no one could ever say that people that live on Island County don't take their area serious. When I look at the effort that you've put into this comp plan for a year and a half now, and I really congratulate you for volunteering your time to do that. It's very heartening. I agree with comments made by Amanda and Marnie from WEAN on those subjects. I also agree with the people that spoke for Bike Woodby. I'm a bicycle rider, have been forever, and a wider shoulder is all we need. We don't need an off-road trail somewhere, just a wider shoulder. But the one thing I would like to pick up on that somebody talked about was lessons learned. Well, I've been around comp plans for a lot of years now, going back to 1998 when we did this one. And the reason they call it the Growth Management Plan in Washington State, because in the 80s, Puget Sound had rampant growth, and it was going sprawling all over the non-urban areas out into the rural areas, and that's why they did it. And so back to lessons learned, the lessons we should learn is what we deal with more than more in the land use section of your comp plan is what to do with the growth, how to put it somewhere other than in the rural area to preserve our rural character. Well, the comp plan says put your growth where the infrastructure exists. Kind of hard to do that on Whidbey Island when you read a UGA and you don't have any infrastructure there. So as far as lessons learned, solve that problem, create the adequate infrastructure so you could put growth where that law says it should go, and we won't have to spend a year and a half on it. Maybe we can do it in less time. So anyway, thank you all very much, and I, for one, really appreciate what you're doing. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Amber Truex.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Amber Truex. I am the Executive Director at Ryan's House for Youth, 19777 State Route 20 in Coopville. We are the only dedicated young adult housing provider in Island County. And I understand that I'm coming to this very long process late, and I appreciate all the work that you guys have done on this plan. Tonight, I'm speaking in regard to the APZ because this draft affects us directly. Since 2016, we've been through 2 Type 3 reviews, both approved with conditions. The most recent in 2025 at the end, both confirmed that the county regulates us as a Class B essential public facility, and under current code, a legally existing use like ours can expand up to 25% without a full alternative site analysis. My comment is this: whatever this draft adopts needs to protect existing legally established uses and the projects the county has already approved, including ours. It needs to keep the expansion path current code grants, and it should keep a review pathway for providers like us instead of a flat prohibition. The same review the county already used to approve our project in December. A review keeps the county aligned with the Navy's guidance and with its own housing goals at the same time. A flat prohibition does neither. I was on a part of the task force that worked on the county's 5-year homeless housing plan. And in that plan finished this year, Island County needs to add 66 emergency shelter beds and 214 permanent supportive housing units by 2030. The same plan commits that the county to advocate for less restrictive zoning so we can build more shelter and more density. I'm not looking for density. This draft does the opposite. It would block an established provider already serving young people in the county from adding beds on land that we own. Two county plans seem to be pointing in two different directions in the same year. I'm asking the commissioners to make the code match the goal the county has already set for itself. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Appreciate it. And lastly, we have Steve Erickson.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. First thing I want to say is that I hope you will take the time to look through the written comments that have been submitted. I know WEAN submitted quite a pile today, but especially I want to direct your attention to the analysis I authored on the potential impacts of the market rate rural clusters. Even if that requires continuing the hearing for long enough to do that. Because this is really kind of the last chance here to change things and get them right. Now, unfortunately, the current planning commission and board of county commissioners are kind of left with a situation not of their own making. In the 1990s and the aughts, the boards of county commissioners were all successively very hostile to growth management and into, I'll call it boomerism. So they mightily resisted compliant with the Growth Management Act, and the result was for year after year after year, comp plan revision after comp plan revision, most of the development in the county continued to go into the rural areas. The result has been that you have very little wiggle room now in terms of accommodating any kind of increased densities in the rural areas. The growth management hearings boards have long held that lot sizes of less than 5 acres are not a rural density, and you can cluster, but you can't cluster so that you're not having a rural density. That doesn't mean you couldn't have individual lots of 2.5 acres in places, or even smaller, which is fairly typical for a cluster development, just that the overall density really can't go below 5 acres. That's an inherent problem with the rural clusters. Not the affordable clusters, because it's balancing some competing GMA goals of serving all income segments. The market rate clusters absolutely will not provide affordable housing. If you look through my analysis, that was the conclusion of the land capacity analysis, though it's not stated like that there, but it's the logical conclusion of what's in the land capacity analysis. And I looked at it a different way and came to the same conclusion. There's tables there with the numbers based on county data. So a lot of this problem can really be traced to the counties someday, sometime, some in a galaxy far away, Freeland will be served by sewer. So we'll call it a non-municipal UGA, but we weren't really have it developed as a UGA because it can't support it without sewer systems. And don't have to be a massive $100 million sewer plant that's trying to pump the effluent out in Holmes Harbor. There all are alternatives, but it takes some creative thinking. And ultimately, it's going to take some public money to do that. And until that's done, the county is really just going to be spinning its wheels on how to accommodate the projected population increase now and in the future without turning pretty much all of rural Whidbey Island into, at least suburbia, if not rural sprawl. And it's going to look like those kind of places. But, you have to realize it's going to be like that everywhere in the county, just about, except maybe Eby's Landing, where
Okay,
there's
Steve,
a fair amount of, I'm finishing up, where there's a fair amount of land under easement, and there are, provisions to prevent that. So thank you.
thank you, Steve. Okay. And with that, I don't believe there are any more people to testify. Okay. As such, I now close the public testimony. Next up, commissioners. Do you have any questions for the staff regarding any of the public testimony? Well, come on, don't be shy. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Ask the staff.
This is Commissioner Dean, Camino Island. I was going back to, I found Wanda Eaton's comments, Coopville, and I think it'd be worth revisiting some of those potential inconsistencies with, around ADUs, condominiums, inability to segregate. I have some. I do have some questions on that. I would like to look into that more, but I think that was one issue that stood out to me here.
Thank you.
Okay, so in regards to the.
Can we address one at a time?
Sure.
And then we'll keep moving on, just so I don't lose track of questions. So Commissioner Dean, your question, it was follow up on Wanda Eaton's comments about the new ADU requirements. There was new legislation from the state that we have to allow ADUs to be sold as condominiums, and the code updates were made to reflect that. I do believe John Lanier here checked the code changes that we proposed. I'll let him talk on what the definition says.
Yeah, John Lanier, Long Range Planning. Formerly, we had our definition ADU detached, single family dwelling in which cannot be segregated and separately sold, yada, yada. We cut out and which cannot be segregated or separately sold, transferred, given, or otherwise conveyed unless the lot is of sufficient size to meet the base density and other county requirements. So we removed that from the definition.
Okay.
So that's to comply with the new state requirements for condoization of a detached ADU.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Yeah. Commissioner Jackson, go ahead with your question.
Marnie Jackson had brought up the 3 items that she feels are legally vulnerable items. Have those been discussed with our attorneys?
So my new notes here say the rural clusters mitigation and the Oak Harbor. Are those the 3 you have?
She talked about the rural clusters not planned well enough, removal of cap, lax planning, no plan for alternatives to infrastructures, specifically in Freeland. And then the Oak Harbor annexation of the UGA.
Studied.
Okay.
That's being studied.
Thank you for summarizing that again. So the rural clusters, yes, the prosecuting attorney's office has reviewed the code updates and the comprehensive plan updates around rural clusters and feels that we're complying with the WEAN on innovative zoning solutions for rural clusters. The capital improvement study to move sewer alternatives forward is in our capital improvements plan and our capital facilities plan. We do have to start with the study before we can get to solutions. There's no way to know what the solutions are until we study them. So that is the first step. It takes time to get the funding for those studies going. I know it's frustratingly slow for folks. And I know also our public health department is making progress on the wastewater provisio that they published for innovative septic solutions and has asked the state legislature for money to study those, which could be of use for septic solutions in our landmarks. So we have a couple different paths forward where we're pursuing infrastructure to support housing, and that is compliant with the GMA. And the Oak Harbor annexation was done under the new RCW that allows annexation via an interlocal agreement that was approved by the board in the city of Oak Harbor, and they moved forward with that work. So yes, it was reviewed by our legal.
And I believe that part of that agreement was that they have to provide the infrastructure as part of that agreement. Is that correct?
Since they annexed it into the city, it's now city land and it must be served by city.
That's correct.
Services, so, correct.
My turn.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So next question is for the bike would be questions. I'm just gonna lump this into one if you don't mind. In regards to the paved shoulders, is that a WADOT thing or is that something that the county actually controls?
If we're talking about 525 or the state highways, that's definitely a WashDOT request.
But otherwise,
But for county roads, it's a county public works issue. Yes.
That had to do with. That had to do with, besides the 4-foot width to allow for the bikes to ride, the paved shoulders versus chip seal. You know, when you ride on chip seal, you lose your tires, so that could be dicey. And the other part, there's 2 more bridge to boat trail, and then the last one is an advisory committee. What do you think?
So the chip sealing is a standard decision that happens within the Public Works Department. It's not something that the comp plan dictates. That's a Public Works issue.
What's your thought?
And the bridge to boat trail, there is a policy in there that's kind of an aspirational policy about connecting trails for bicycle use. The Public Works CIPE has the Ken's Corner connection that they're working on and a connection near in EBs near the Kettles trails. But other than that, they don't have funding or movement on other connections. So that would be a long-term aspirational goal. And then finally, for the Bicycle Advisory Committee, that's a new request we haven't seen before. I'll say, you know, I don't believe there's anything in the comp plan that would preclude something like that, but that's a Board of County Commissioners decision. They, you know, kind of control which committees we have and which ones we don't have. So that request could go to the board and doesn't need to hold up the.
That would be great. Yeah. My turn. Let's see. Let's do Carlos, Deer Lagoon Reserve. Definition to preserve and protect. And then there was the access to the beaches. 2 were not valid, 1 was. Thoughts about that?
So I would have to look at those specific sections of the perks element to see what his statements are. I do remember the board had a work session recently on the Deer Lagoon and the possibility of a management plan. So our consultant and our Public Works Department put together that parks element. And so those requested changes are ones the Planning Commission can consider if you're interested in making substantive changes. Are you checking something right now? You want to weigh in on?
I just also want to weigh in that from February 4th work session with the board, I think their intention was to adopt the management plan separately from the comprehensive plan. It wasn't supposed to be an appendices to the comprehensive plan. Instead, it would be an overall management plan specifically for Deer Lagoon. And that is why the public may not be seeing it today in this packet.
So the direction that staff received maybe was interpreted a little bit different than what the request was from the public.
Okay. Anything? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you have any?
I wanted to refer back to the very first speaker, Amanda Bullis. She talked about the definition of no net loss and that it applies only mentions shoreline and not wetlands and other natural resources.
I haven't had time to review that one yet, so I'll have to look into those comments and see the reference points on that.
Okay, I have one more. My last one. Mark Wall mentioned the cell towers, antennas, wireless permitting. And he did indicate that the text was for 2025 was the same as 2016, and the map still reflects what was that? Yeah. I didn't write down the number, but 25, and now it's in the hundreds. So what about an update on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. So in the scoping phase of the comprehensive plan, the public gave a lot of input on what they'd like to see updated in the comprehensive plan. And my team evaluated that long list of things and brought a prioritization discussion to the board, knowing that we didn't have the staff with our small team of 4 planners to do the significant updates that had been requested by the community. We asked the board to prioritize some items. One of the items that they, I'll say, deprioritized or said not to update during this comprehensive plan update was the cell tower information and code updates. And that is on our implementation plan for future year work. And so they purposefully put that down the road due to staffing limitations. There were several other items that were kind of deprioritized for this comp plan update due to staffing concerns, and that was one of them. So we did carry forward much of the language from the 2016 update. Mark Wall is correct about that, and that was purposeful.
What about the map? Can we update the map?
We don't have a better map to put into the comprehensive plan.
I do not know the exact reason why, but some of the cell towers were not showing up in our database, and the recent FCC mapping website was discontinued with current administration. So
we don't have
access to a better map.
There you go. Okay. Thank you for that. Any more? Julie? Oh, here we go.
Okay, in regards to Amber Trex, she was asking about being able to grandfather in. See, she talked about being able to protect legally existing housing and removing the flat denial. I was trying to take the notes really fast. Oh, she's the ED of Ryan's house.
Right.
Yeah. So that one is new information to me tonight. I'd have to research it some more.
There you go.
Jonathan, I don't want to put you on the spot, but the new code doesn't necessarily apply to existing uses. Do you want to weigh in on that piece, or should we do more research before?
Oh,
I would have to look into it. Our existing uses section of code, John, correct me if I'm wrong, is that anything in that changing at all?
We're not changing anything with existing uses unless we're changing a citation or how, something.
So I think the question might have been around their proposal to for future expansion of the facility. And so we'd have to look into it a little bit, but for our existing code section around existing uses or legally non-conforming uses that they can continue. And some expansions may be able to occur. So we'll work with them, reach out to them, but it may be because of the new mapping that they're now covered in an area that was previously not.
That's
an
right.
APZ zone, and now they're covered in an APZ zone.
Oh.
And what I'll share is, we received direction from the board to adopt these new APZ and AQs maps as part of the comp plan update. So, we're putting that in place. I know the board did have some discussions on kind of the equity concerns of putting affordable housing in noise zones, and had kind of called out that was something they wanted to avoid in the future. They made the decision to permit Ryan's house in the Haven previously, and those are in the noise zones, but future projects, I think they had some concerns about the equity of putting more affordable housing in those areas. And that's why we put those restrictions in place in the comprehensive plan. So it was a board decision. And they could reconsider with these comments at the final adoption.
Actually, I did have one more thing. According to James Blaisdell, he said We actually should do a lessons learned review. Now, that's not gonna be part of the comp plan, but for the staff planning department staff, would that not be something useful to do?
That was a great idea. I think Emily and I looked at each other and started nodding during it.
Yeah, I
It is a
mean,
great idea with any project, not.
right, I mean,
like you said.
everybody does that, so if it's not on the docket of the planning department, maybe it should be.
Yeah, it's not on the implementation plan. We can certainly raise that for the board. I will say the implementation plan was published as a working draft on purpose because it's meant to be an evolving document. So our implementation plan will be influenced by the current board and future boards, and it's a policy choice of what moves forward every year. So when departments bring work plans forward, that is going to be an ever evolving list. And I think that's a wonderful suggestion for Mr. Blaisdell we can bring forward.
Great. Okay.
So Wanda, and I didn't get her last name, but she was talking about the housing element. And does it contain all of the required elements? And she talked about ADUs, and there's the new bill that you mentioned, 1345, and that law talks about several compliance requirements that the county must have if they're going to have ADUs in the rural areas. Are those in the works? Are those included in the current draft of the development ordinances, development regulations, or?
The compliance pieces of that bill we'll have to assess and figure out how to implement in future years. Our legal team has reviewed that bill, reviewed our proposed development regulations, and feels comfortable with what we've proposed. But there are certainly things in future years as that bill is implemented, we'll have to figure out, and compliance, I believe, is one of those.
Okay, so we can, is it the legal opinion that we can have ADUs in the current plan and have those 35
weighed in on that, yes.
permits before we get all of those compliance pieces drafted?
John Lanier, Long Range Planning. Well, we went through 1345 and staff feels like we have modeled our code with that in mind.
Okay.
Yeah. What type of compliance? Are you like code compliance or just compliance?
There's
Okay.
language about if it's unpermitted, let's see.
Oh, having a process to bring it in.
Sections 2 and 3, yeah. Where's, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Clyburn, I know what you're talking about. So the planning department will have to reassess how the code enforcement occurs with those currently unpermitted but built DADUs or detached ADUs. We will reassess how those will be enforced per that bill. And the prosecuting attorney will look over that process again to ensure it's complying with House Bill 1345.
Right. There's language about if they've done an unpermitted one and they want to come into voluntary compliance, it's 2 times the regular fee or 3 times the
And there's a
regular fee
minimum
in some
fee.
cases.
Yep.
And
So we'll have to do a fee update, but that's something we can do annually with our work plans. So the compliance pieces can kind of fit into those process improvements.
That in mind?
I think so.
Okay,
Do any of the commissioners online have questions?
Jim, Darren, anything?
You all hit all the ones that I had written down.
Okay.
So I just let everybody go, and guess what? Y'all hit the ones that I was looking at.
Okay. It's kind of confusing for me at this point. So I think the planning commissioners will now deliberate and discuss the facts, the findings of fact, the 2 sets, because we need to vote on that and then adjust accordingly. My issue, what's got me a little confused is we might have recommendations to change as well, not part of the public hearing. Do we do that at a separate time?
That's part of deliberation. So if planning commissioners have suggestions for things you want changed, you'll have to deliberate amongst yourselves to make those recommendations and see if you have
Okay.
majority vote.
So we can do that as part of the deliberations,
Deliberation, yes.
both facts of finding and our own comments.
Yep.
Okay.
All of that.
And if I could add to that, if there are any substantive changes that are being recommended, you can recommend it and then you vote on it when you make the motion. So we can make a list as you deliberate of the recommendations, and then we'll make sure that you hit all of them during the motion.
All right. So what I'd like to do, board, commission, is let's go through the facts of finding first and get that settled, and then we'll go into our separate issues. So
Can I make a recommendation?
yes, please, Commissioner Hand.
So perhaps because we have two findings of facts and two
Yes.
things on the floor that we need to deliberate.
Right.
Can we take care of the code first? Because that seems to me that we'll probably spend a little bit more time on the comp plan.
It's up to you all.
Should we vote on whether we should do that? No, just, that's fine. What do you think? That's fine, sure.
Because, okay, well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I think our code work discussion is going to go more than 20 minutes. So we'll be here next week to do the findings of fact.
So you're welcome to start the deliberation process tonight. And then if we need to continue to another hearing, we can call for a motion to continue when it gets to be close to 8 o'clock.
Okay. Okay, Darren and Commissioner Hand, that's what we'll do. So go ahead and start. If you have issues that you'd like to bring up regarding the comp plan, now is the time to do it. And I do, and I don't want to go first. Anybody? Come on. Mike?
I know Mike's got it.
Mike?
I'm counting on you.
Well, I'm a little confused too. So we're talking just about
Just the code.
The comp plan. Do you have any changes you want, substantive changes that you'd like to make to the comp
the
plan?
comp plan.
Okay, I can go first.
Yeah.
To give everybody an example what we're looking for. And I'll start with the most important one to me. And I'm a big advocate about clear cutting. I'm against clear cutting. I want to be clear on that. And so the one that has caught my attention most of all, I have a few, but I have 6. But I want to give number 1 first. And it is natural resources. Paragraph 11.4 says encourage forestry landowners to retain their lands in timber production. That totally freaked me out. I would say discourage, not encourage, because that goes contrary to everything, starting with the vision, which says protect forests. Clear cutting is not protecting forests. And there's so much more resiliency, on and on and on, a rural character. It just goes, anyway. So I know I'll never get to change it to discourage, but I'd like to submit to the commission that we change it to allow. We don't have to encourage it, but I think we could allow timber production.
Would you like staff response about that?
Yes, please, before we make a vote, please.
So that policy, I looked back through our notes on it. We brought it forward in our goals and policies matrix when we reviewed them with the planning commission and the board. The board suggested that we add sustainable forest management or something to that effect to the policy.
Yeah, it says that.
At the board's direction. What I'll say is that policy is maintain lands and forest production is meant to say, don't convert it to housing. So it's actually supportive of what you're talking about. It's meant to keep forests in place. And yes, it encourages forestry as a resource because the Growth Management Act requires us to protect resource lands. And these lands are designated for forest uses and forest practices. So the subsequent policies that support that we rewrote to largely really to encourage sustainable forest practices and discourage clear cutting to the extent we can. The county has little effect over that. The DNR is really the decider on a lot of those things. But that policy is really to promote it to stay in a forestry and tax program and not to be converted for housing. So I think it is maybe, it sounds scary, but that's not the intent.
The problem is that's how I read it. And that's how everybody else is going to read it. They're not going to have that background. And it says encourage landowners in timber production. There it is. Now, if you want to take the words timber production out, that's fine. Or we can change encourage to allow. And if you do allow, you're still doing it.
So this isn't a staff decision.
I know, I'm just saying, and my comment wasn't just to you, it was to the voting members here of the commission, because I really feel passionate about that. Any comments from the commissioners on that? Okay. Should we just do a vote, straight up vote? Okay, how about?
I would vote for encourage.
Yeah. To allow.
Yeah.
Allow.
Anybody not supportive of allow? Okay,
So I have a question for staff.
go ahead.
These are just recommendations that are going to go back up to the Board of County Commissioners, and
Yes.
they have the opportunity to change it back to encourage if that's what they want. Is that correct?
So if we make any substantive changes here, I'll have to consult. If the planning commission opts to make substantive changes, I'll have to consult with the prosecuting attorney on process to see if we need to renotice the document before we move it forward to the board and have another public hearing at the planning commission here. I'm not sure on that process yet, so I can't fully answer your question. But yes, ultimately the board will have the final say on this document. If they make a substantive change though, to change it back, that could add to their process
Right,
too.
no, yeah, that's fine.
Well, so I'm saying if they have to renotice and do a public hearing, it's gonna add time to their process as well. So either way.
So in other words, if we change it from allow to encourage, then we got to redo the process because that's a substantive change. And then if they want to change it from allow back to encourage, then that's another change. That's what I'm hearing.
The planning commission's findings of fact are going to be attached as an exhibit to the board's ordinance, and they could choose to not take all of the planning commission's recommendations at their public hearing.
Gotcha.
If they do not
Okay.
feel like it aligns with what,
Yeah, but it could add time to the process. I will say I looked back at the notes from the board work session in discussing the forest practices, and they were generally supportive of keeping policies that promote forestry as a resource and a management tool. It still is a viable, it's protected under the GMA. And I think that was the emphasis for keeping that policy previously.
You believe current wording supports sustainable forestry management practices?
That was the intent of adding those.
That was the addition.
So essentially, these are going to be recommendations anyway, right?
Yes.
So we're just going to recommend them to the commissioners, and they would have the last call on it. And they would be dealing with some of the fallout, or as it were, what it would take to
Yes.
to have new public hearings and stuff like that. Yeah. So can you foresee that as being a concern?
Only that it will add time to the process, and they've asked, because of the moratorium that's in place, they're trying to get the comprehensive plan approved as soon as possible, so we don't have to extend that moratorium again. We've already done one extension, and they're trying to serve the public by getting that extension removed.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was their concern and wanting to adopt in June. So that's how our timeline is set up, which doesn't mean we can't make substantive changes. It's just, it may add time to the process.
Yeah.
So we want to seriously consider changes.
Yeah, I recognize that, and I'd like them to make that decision when we make a recommendation to change encourage to allow. They can move it back to encourage and say, because of time. All right. That's good to go. Next one is 87,000 residents of Island County. It's on page 296, paragraph 2. And we have a number of places in the comp plan where we cite how many residents there are in Island County. And I would like, in this case, to put the year that we were talking about. So if it's 2023, 80,000, great. Just put in parentheses 2023, because I don't know when 87,000 is. It's not now. I think we're at 89 or 88 plus. Is that a substantive? What do you think?
It's a clarification.
Okay. Oh, good. Managed retreat plan was mentioned on 305. Create a managed retreat plan for county-owned facilities.
Yes, so the board asked county staff to create, add a policy to the climate element into the capital facilities elements, stating that they wanted to study manage retreat for county-owned facilities and roads, as some of our roads and facilities are on the shoreline, and as climate change occurs over the next 20 years, they will be impacted by sea level rise. So they want a managed retreat plan for county facilities.
To essentially create redundancy. So if a road is washed away, where would we relocate the road? So creating some redundancy in our roads and our county-owned facilities to ensure that they are resilient.
Now it makes sense.
Okay, we're good now.
Maybe a couple words about what retreat means. I mean,
I'm pretty sure in the climate element, I had 2 sentences. I will double check that right now.
And it's a plan, not actually adding infrastructure.
Correct, but it would hopefully inform the transportation improvement plan and capital improvement plans of the future.
actually, my number 2. Might have to actually read the code on this. In page 109, the first paragraph, it says the county can offer a local source of lumber to residents, thereby reducing transportation. But in paragraph 6.4.4.2, it says just the opposite. All lumber leaves the island. So that counters what this sentence says, and I would recommend deleting it.
John Lanier, all lumber leaves the island for processing into or all timber leaves the island for processing into lumber. But I believe it also mentions a lot of timber is also turned into firewood and stuff and wood products and used locally, staying within the county the whole time.
Thank you, John. That's good. I'll go with that. Okay, now for the really minor ones. I have 2 minor ones and then I'm done. One is a definition of rip wrap, which is first cited on page 13 under religious organization, and I did not know what that meant, and there is no definition for it. Is that something we need to vote on?
I'll have staff check our overall county code definitions to see if riprap is there. It might just not be a definition in the comp plan. But it is a commonly used term in our shoreline planning. And so folks who do that kind of work are familiar with it.
That's not me.
Not you, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but adding a definition,
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
I think that's a substantive change to add a definition at this phase. Yeah, so riprap is defined in our county code.
Yeah.
We have a definition in the shoreline management program for riprap. Do you want to hear it? That's fine. Means a form of structural shoreline stabilization comprising a foundation or sustaining wall or of stones or chunks of concrete thrown together without order, or a layer of similar material on an embankment slope to prevent erosion.
Okay, how about this? This was in the shoreline management plan. Is it possible to move that definition and include it in the comp plan as well? I mean, it's just a paragraph.
It's a substantive change if we do that.
Because we do cite riprap in the comp plan, even though it's defined in the shoreline management plan. You see what I'm saying? So if I wanted to get a definition of it, I wouldn't know to go to the shoreline management plan to get it. What do you think?
I'd go to the shoreline management.
It's up to you if you want to make that recommendation. Staff won't tell you yes or no, I think, on that one. It's up to the planning commission.
What do you guys?
Would you
Uh,
know to go for the shoreline management plan?
No, so if putting the definition in here is substantive. Would putting a line in here that says riprap is defined in the shoreline management plan, would that be?
As defined in the shoreline.
Or asterisk C shoreline management plan? Is that substantive?
I think that's a clarification.
I'm fine
we
with
could
that.
go with.
Can we clarify it?
I'm fine with that. We could do that. Okay, my last one. Page 97, goal 3 was talking about data, age, race, and ethnicity, and I was wondering why gender was left out. How about that, huh? Comments from the staff? Does anybody have any objection to adding gender to the data? Oh, yep, okay. Yeah, I read this stuff.
What's the context of that again
I
before
can
you say
read the
that?
goal.
Goal 3, you know, look it up, page 97.
I can read the goal just for the planning commissioners.
Yes.
Goal 3 in the housing element states collect census data on age, race, and ethnicity data and analyze for racial disparities in access to affordable rental cost burden, homeownership, and displacement.
I think gender should
And
be
those,
part of that.
and those are state mandated, right? Those,
Yeah, and so, yeah, I mean, we're looking at displacement risks and I'm not sure gender is as relevant there, but.
This is racial.
or is included, it's not really included in the equity portions of the state mandates, is my understanding.
So you don't think we should include it?
I'm just saying, I believe that wasn't probably copied verbatim, but we were following state guidelines, and the state guidelines don't require us to have it. This, and you can correct me, but.
Pass. Okay, anybody else have anything? Mike?
Yes, and some of these maybe were, well. I did not send these in, but so on page 11, under the definition of agriculture, it talks about long-term commercial significance for agricultural production. And I think that needs to be broader. And I mean, it's a definition of, I don't have it in front of me, I just have my note that I made. But it's a definition of agriculture, it's not the definition of commercial agriculture.
Is that substantive?
But changing definitions is substantive.
Are you on the code or the comprehensive plan?
The comp plan.
And you're looking at glossary?
No,
Yeah, glossary, yeah.
well, never mind. We're on the code.
Oh, you mean, I see what you're saying. A long term. Are you saying that, so that the long-term commercial significance for agricultural production needs to be better specified as commercial ag land? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if it's the definition of agriculture, it should include as agriculture as it exists on the island, which is, you know, sometimes small 5 and 10 acre pieces.
I see.
So the agricultural committee of Island County, ARCIC, provided comments on our drafts, and they submitted some specific edits to those definitions that I incorporated as part of the changes. So it came from the ag community of how they wanted that written. And I'll just say the list of items that are grown is reflective of what the ag community said is grown here. So we tried to make that as specific as possible. If you have a specific change you'd like to make, I'd be happy to hear that, but we'll need more direction on what you want it to say specifically.
I need to review what my note means to me.
Okay.
Okay. We, we have, I hope you can hear me. We have 19 pages that were submitted from WEAN at the last minute that most of the commissioners, including myself, have not had a chance to look through. And as you can tell, we did not get to deliberate on those two findings. Even if we may be close to the end of our comments, we still have not discussed the findings. And as a result, I think we're going to have to continue this hearing on Wednesday, May 27, 2026 at 6 o'clock in the same location
To continue deliberations.
to continue deliberations so we can make a vote on the findings, both findings.
Somebody will have to make a motion to that effect.
I'm making that motion.
You are, okay.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Okay. Opposed? Okay. It passes.
Okay, we'll see you here next Wednesday to continue deliberation.
I will now make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Okay. Any opposed? Thank you so much, staff, for all the work, and thank you, public, for participating, and we'll try it again next week. Take care, drive safe.